Guys, I think I have a problem. What you're about to see is the amount of books that I am currently reading. Not talking about wanting to read or putting in order of what I want to read next. What I am currently reading. Whether I'm halfway through, nearly finished, or just started. And I think this is a problem. Every time I think I'm just going to read one book and stick to that, read it all the way from start to finish, and then move on to the next, it just doesn't happen. I feel like it's an issue. It's across multiple genres and multiple book lengths. I can't help but cracking open a new book and seeing what it has to offer. It's very enticing to me somehow and almost euphoric in some strange sense. Especially if it's a book I've been searching for a long time or it's by an author that I really enjoy. And there's downsides to this. Reading too many books at once can create a lot of confusion in me. If a few days or weeks go by and I don't get back to the book, then sometimes I get a little bit lost, especially if they're quite lengthy. And sometimes I have to do a little bit of a cheeky Google search and kind of read up a summary about where I'm up to just to kind of get an inkling and an idea of where I'm at. I don't know if that is a bad thing or a good thing, but I wonder if it does distract from the enjoyment of the whole body experience of reading a book. Maybe it's not very effective. You can't really absorb everything that's coming through because you're always dipping in and out, taking breaks. And don't get me wrong, I think breaks, especially with quite long books, can be helpful. Gives you a bit of a restart and to get back into it. But for the most part, I think it's always better to kind of read books in kind of a good few sittings, sticking to that one book, not changing, not mixing up characters from other books and getting your mind foggy when it comes to this. I kind of wonder if it's an issue or a problem. Like, am I getting the most experienced and the best experience out of reading books in that way? Especially if you look at the books I have on this list here. There's Stephen King and a bit of It. There's Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn fantasy series. There's the John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. And it's a mix, jumping from fantasy to modern to literary. Maybe it's helpful that most of these books in my list that kind of span multiple genres and are about multiple different things. Maybe it kind of keeps it a little bit in perspective when I have to dip back into them and kind of remind myself what they're about if I kind of get a little bit lost. I've especially found that with reading It at the moment by Stephen King. Some days I can just smash down chapters and really digest what's happening, but a week or two can go by and I don't actually go back and pick it up. Whether that's a bad thing or not, you've got to have to let me know, because at the moment I think it's been working for me for that kind of story. I mean, it's like, 800 pages? It's longer. It's almost like a small Bible to some extent. I mean, all of this has kind of got me thinking about owning physical books in the first place. There a lot of years went by where I tend to buy book after book, a mixture of secondhand or brand new, depending where I can get them. There's something really nice about picking up a secondhand book, like my copy of Grapes of Wrath there. An old edition, how many hands and people have it touched, and lives that it's lived through and memories that it's shared with those people that have read it. Or did it just sit in some high school student's locker in America and somehow find its way here, maybe? Just there's multiple stories about where that book could have been, where it has been, and now it's with me. And there's something I quite like about that. But there's also something to be said about owning so much stuff that I'm constantly going through patterns of getting rid of some books, even favourites of mine, and sending them to charity shops or to selling them in secondhand bookshops, and then redoing it all again with different types of books, or repurchasing favourites that I thought that I would never read again, but then realised, oh God, I really missed that story and I want that back in my life. And maybe that's a way too. I mean, everyone wins out maybe to a certain extent, but I don't know if it's very effective. I mean, and even environmentally, is digital the way to go? I don't know if I could get used to holding a Kindle or various devices and reading a full-length book on that. I mean, the fact that I haven't given it a go maybe says that maybe I should, to see if that works. I'd be interested to see what you guys think about what you do and how you digest a lot of books now. And I kind of want to know, is this a problem that you guys have? Is this something that you experience where you just have so many books on the go that you're trying to read that it almost becomes a problem? You almost feel like it dampens the experience of reading any one of them in the first place by mixing them all up and having multiple genres and working it that way. So yeah, I'd like to know. I think it's a little bit of a problem. I really want to get into the mode of start one book and finish one book. Don't look at any others unless it's like a reference book or maybe non-fiction for me. I'm a big fan of fiction, but I love non-fiction as well. So maybe I'd have one fiction and one non-fiction on the go. But I think maybe I need to give myself some restraint and just try and relax into the story. Or maybe is it fine? Is it fine to dip in and dip out and not even go back to a book for weeks or months? I'm kind of wrestling. Like, granted, it's not the biggest issue in the world, but it's a habit, and I'm curious about people's habits. So tell me about yours. Tell me what you do when it comes to this particular situation. And do you have the same problem as me, or is it a problem? Is it just the way you like to read? But until next time, have a good day and keep on reading.